Hey, Daylon. Yeah, I'm in now. I just joined. I got tied up today with all kind of stuff, and I did not get a chance to promote it though. So I don't know. You guys did? Okay. You- okay. You want me to put it in the chat? Okay. Okay. I'll do that. And you got some people logging in now.
Hello, everybody, and happy Friday.
Hi, Daylon.
Hey, Steve. Huh? Hey, Carlos. Good to see you.
Hey, how are you guys?
How are you, brother? Hey, thank you so much, man, for helping us with that today.
Oh man, listen, if I can do this for you every once in a while on the different tops, I'd be like, I appreciate the opportunity,
Awesome, man. Awesome. We welcome you anytime. People are logging in now, so we're gonna give it a few minutes, and then.
Yeah, no worries, of course. I figure, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man. Good morning, Lawrence. Good morning. Good afternoon, Lawrence.
Hi, good morning or good afternoon. You're right about that.
Yeah. I'm way behind. How you doing today?
You're hungry. That's why you haven't had lunch yet.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I'm having Cuban coffee at this time.
Oh, okay. That's a good way to wake up.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Jonathan. How are you?
How you doing, sir? Thank you
Good.
for inviting me. Thank you for allowing me to attend.
No, of course, man. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, man.
Good afternoon, Eimer. Liam.
Good afternoon, Dave.
Hey, Eimer. How's it going, man?
Doing well, doing well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. Ray, what's up, man?
Hi.
Hey, Liam. Hey, Jane.
Hey, Daylon, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, excellent. Thanks for asking.
Awesome. I hope everyone is having a great Friday so far.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
I don't know if you noticed, but on our WhatsApp chat,
Hmm.
I posted I posted a video for a listing that I got in Edgewater, and I grabbed the wrong video, and it looks like a great big black rectangle. And unless you click on it, you're not going to see the video. And it's a beautiful picture to start off with, but it's like, oh my God, why did I do that?
Oh no.
I can't take it back now.
When was that?
That was, I think that was a couple days ago.
Oh, okay, okay. Got it.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll put another
Yeah. Please share it again.
picture out there. Yeah.
It's all good. Hey, Will.
What's up? How's everyone?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Feel good?
Awesome, man. Good. Thank you so much for joining.
Claro. I have a closing right now in Coconut Creek, but they're still not letting the agents attend the closing for the DR Horn deals.
Oh, get out of here.
Yeah.
So they're just taking the buyers right now, not the
Yeah. Like you can go, but they're gonna make you sit outside and really not be a part of it.
Right. That's for what is it? Keys Point.
It was the last one at Somerville.
Oh, okay, good.
It was one that fell through, and then I had a buyer. I wish there was more of those because
Somerville is a good
ones
community.
were really good deals.
That is a good community.
Yeah. Little garage, 4 bedrooms.
Right.
It's not bad.
Not at all. I was trying to get one in there, but the buyer decided for something else.
Yeah. Keys Point, I have one for Keys Point hopefully coming up, but I think they pushed it again. I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, cool, man. Let's do it. Let's see. All right, we'll give it one more minute and we'll start. Hey, Monica.
Hi, Dylan.
How you doing?
Very good. Thank you.
Awesome.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. All right, let's see. We have about 13. A lot more people are still logging in right now. All right, Steve, we ready to go?
Yeah. Okay, I just started the Facebook, so I want to let everyone know that we are live on Facebook, and I'm going to start recording this and do my disclaimer as we record it here. Okay, so we are recording this for training and quality assurance and content purposes, everyone, just be aware. And we are also streaming it live on Facebook. So share with your friends, and I'll drop the Facebook link into the chat if you want to share that with anyone else. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Daylon.
Excellent, Steve. Thank you so much for that. Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to Real Estate Friday. As you know, we're here with you every single Friday. We've been doing it for the past, since March, since all of this pandemic started. So First of all, welcome to for today's training. You're in for a treat because it's something that you guys have been wondering, concerned about, dealing with, and it has to do with evictions. Well, I invited somebody that most of you or some of you might know him, some of you don't. His name is Carlos Ferreiros. He's from Ferreiros Law. He's an attorney, and he's gonna bring in some valuable information. As you know, eviction it's been one of the main topics lately, and how to deal with it. So I'm gonna let Carlos take it from here, and he's gonna talk a little bit about himself, you know, his company, what they do, the type of services, and obviously he'll answer some questions regarding the eviction. So Carlos, thank you so much for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Well, happy Friday, everybody. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Broker Nation, for giving me the opportunity to be in front of you guys and share some wealth and knowledge with you, whatever I can do to help. I'm here for you guys to give you guys the support that you guys need as agents. My name is Carlos Ferreiros. This is my firm, Ferreiros Law, PLC. I am originally from Venezuela. I moved over here when I was about I want to say 7 years old. Was here until I was about 13, moved to Panama for a couple of years and came back over here and then ended up staying here and went to law school and all that stuff here. I've been practicing for a little over 11 years now, primarily in real estate. When I got out of law school, the primary thing that was going on was foreclosures back in 2008, 2009. So I got heavily involved into the real estate world. That's the world I was introduced to as an attorney when I was young. Short sales, foreclosures, eviction, things like that. So that's pretty much where I've always stayed at and what my forte is. I then got into business development as well. I've represented both defendants and plaintiffs in foreclosure actions, evictions, represented both defendants and landlords. The primary focus of my practice is investor driven. Okay, it's an investment practice. So basically, in-house, we have a title company. We also have buyers, sellers, hard money lenders, private money lenders, conventional lenders, everything in-house that you guys that someone needs in order to purchase or fix and flip or fix and rent or refinance or whatever you guys may need. So we keep that all in-house on purpose, just to have a one-stop shop, so to speak, to get that done. I'll get a little more into that later, but I'll get into pretty much how the evictions and how we can, where we are today and how it's different than it was before pandemic. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So evictions, right? I'm sure you guys have some clients that are landlords that are asking, hey, what the heck is going on? What do I do? Are my hands tied? And up until last month, they pretty much were. Okay. When you were realistically, when you get an eviction, when you get a landlord or one of the clients talking about evictions, you kind of want to see what you can do as far as the tenant. I always try to resolve them with them first, calling the tenant, figuring out what the tenant wants to do. Hey, what's going on? What's the real issue? Let's figure it out. Sometimes it's just a matter of communication between the landlord and the tenant. Sometimes it's just the tenant doesn't have the money to pay and just trying to do whatever he can, So, and that's when the eviction process happens, obviously. So back before pre-COVID, there was a normal process. If you had a lease, you did a 3-day notice, then you filed a complaint and then you move on and so forth, right? However, up until when COVID happened, the governor issued with the emergency order. So that emergency order basically stayed the entire process, okay? You could file, but you couldn't even move forward. The clerk wasn't issuing the summons in order for you to get the actual eviction process started. Okay, so that's a huge, you can't do anything with the summons. You can't serve the individual. You can't move the eviction process forward. So the normal process obviously is a 3-day notice, 15-day notice, and 7-day non-compliance, okay? So I'll get into those notices a little later on so we can go over everything. But there is a little bit light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, because now the governor has issued a new executive order, okay, for the month of August. And what it specifically states is, for the purposes of this section, adversely affected by COVID-19 emergency means loss of employment, diminished wages, business income, or other monetary loss realized during the Florida state of emergency directly impacting the residential tenant to make rent payments. Now, 2 things you got to take out of this, okay? 1, adversely affected, which is now putting the burden on the tenant. So now what does this do is actually open up the courts, allow us to actually file the evictions, and summonses are finally being issued. Okay. I have several evictions that have just been pending there for some time. I filed them even though I knew that they weren't going to get summons out. Why? Because the clients told me to get those evictions just filed, get them on the record, would be first in line once they do start opening it. And then, so one, it puts a burden on the defendant on the tenant to prove in court that they have been affected by COVID, which is huge, because that's never been done before. Usually, you just go in there and file the eviction, and now they have an opportunity to do this. So it puts a little bit of burden shifting on the tenant here. Then the other thing is that impacting the ability of the residential tenant to make rent payments. That's also important. Now, in the beginning of the whole entire process, the governor always issued this order, and it always included about rental payments. But what about if you terminated a lease? What about if they were not compliant and you terminated a lease? What about if it was a 15-day notice because it was a month-to-month, and therefore you're not evicting them for rental payments, but you're evicting them because you terminated the lease? So I tried that back then, right? And it didn't necessarily, and they still weren't issuing out summonses. The clerk of the courts instructed their clerks not to issue the summonses, which is a workaround. But now that there's a new order, out saying that they can actually move forward with the evictions, it actually leaves the door open to a variety of ways and to creative ways that we can actually get these people out and even avoid them having to come in and prove that they whether they were affected, if they were affected for the purposes of COVID, like if they were impacted on COVID. So so let me get into those ways how we can actually get around, or not get around, but use the notices and the statutes into our favor. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. So even though clerks have started to issue summonses, some things you have to know is that a lot of the summonses are being issued by snail mail. They're not doing them electronic like they usually do. Miami-Dade, for example, no matter if you send it overnight or whatever, by the time they get it, they are processing these by hand, essentially making this a very, 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 very long process. I think I issued 2 of them. I tried to get two of them issued last week. The week before Thursday, I still haven't received them like 7 days later. Usually you get these within, a day or 2. So let's say one of the things I was talking about, let's say you do a regular 3-day notice, you file the complaint, you get an eviction out, you get the summons finally, and then you come into court, and now this person's comes to court with evidence showing, hey, COVID, I lost my job, here's proof, here's everything, and now you're back to square one, right? Now what do you do? Now you've done expense, you filed, you paid an attorney, you filed court costs, and now you're back to square one. Okay, so there's a couple different things that you can do in order to help out your clients or even let them know what's going on. Okay, and this is good for especially for agents, because agents, you guys should have all these notices in your back pockets in order. You got either notices or have an attorney that can help you out with these notices. But most landlords, experienced landlords, probably already have these. Okay. So one of the things that you want to do is, so there's a 3-day notice that, hey, 3 days you haven't paid rent, therefore then you can file the eviction. Okay. What I like to do is, when you have a tenant that's a lease on a written lease, right, and they're not paying during these times, right? Sometimes you can, when you look at the property, your landlords may be worried that they're being destroyed, they're not taking care of them, they're not paying rent, so who knows what's going on with the property, right? The landlord has an absolute right to go ahead and inspect the property as long as he provides notice within 12 hours, the day prior to. Usually it's done 24 hours to give the person an opportunity. They can do it via, it can be an inspection, it can be a repair to the property, it can be a variety of reasons that you can do. Okay, why is this important? Because if you do an inspection, right, let's say it's a written lease, 3-day notice, you go into court, they prove you have COVID, you're back to square one. Let's say you do the inspection, you go in, you find out, hey, they have dogs, their lease doesn't allow for dogs. Hey, you have an extra person living there. That person's not on the lease. You're not supposed to be living there. Hey, they're conducting business, doing commercial. They're doing something that's against the lease. It can be a variety of things. Landlords usually put a lot of restrictions on the lease, as far as people living there, pets, for whatever reason, they don't want the property to be destroyed, right? Now you see this. Now you've done an inspection. Now you see this. Now you go back and you do what's called a 7-day compliance, right? Go ahead, you file, you send them, hey, listen, you have a dog, you have family members, you're using the workspace for, you know, mechanical work, whatever the case may be. You find a reason why there, you know, there are no reasons, but if there are reasons there, which, you know, if they're not paying rent, chances are they have other people living there. You never know. Every situation is different, but at least you can use this as your advantage. But you give a 7-day notice saying, hey, there's a dog here, this and this and this, right? If they don't comply or show you proof that they comply within 7 days, you have the right to terminate that lease. Okay. So now before when you have a regular written lease, right, and they're just not paying, you can't just simply terminate it. You can do, I mean, you go do what's filed an eviction, but if you terminate the lease, even if you're not evicting them for the purposes of non-payment, you're evicting them because the lease has been terminated and they breached the terms of the eviction. So it doesn't matter if they come in and show proof that COVID's affecting their ability to pay rent, because you're not evicting them for the rental purposes. You're evicting them because they terminate the lease because they breached the lease. And that's important because of how the way the governor issued his statement and issued his order. Okay. So that's one way that you can use the Florida statutes and the notice inspections and the 7-day notice to your favor, to avoid having to going in there right away and just doing a 3-day notice, and then all of a sudden they come and they show proof that they were actually affected and they're for the rental payment. Okay. You also have the month-to-month, you know, the 15-day notice, right? Again, you're not evicted, you know, and you do the 15-day notice, you know, they're month-to-month, they're not paying you, right? So therefore, what do? You terminate the lease. Hey, it's time to move out. You know, they're month-to-month, they don't have a written lease. So it doesn't matter whether they're paying or not. You give them 15-day notice to vacate and termination of the lease. Next thing you know, you go to court and you're not evicting them once again for the purposes of rental payments. You're evicting them because the lease is now over, and now they're holding over and they're staying in the property. So once again, don't have to worry. They come in, well, I lost my job, I lost everything. Judge, you know, here's we're not here for rental payments. We're here because they're not supposed to be here. The lease has been terminated. We're not even going after the money at this point. Which realistically, and most landlords don't go after the funds. They'll go after back pay. You know what I mean? So mostly they just want the people out at this point, get a good tenant in there. Unless it's like you know, every situation is different, every landlord's different. But you know, in the event I have a situation now that this lady hasn't paid for 3 months, and I negotiated for her to get out within 10 days, and we won't go after her for whatever rent she owes. You know, at this point, my client just wanted to move forward, get him out, forget about the back rent. Plus, I mean, if she's not paying now, for me to go after them for the monies and collecting from the judgment and stuff like that, it's gonna be an endeavor. It's gonna be something that's gonna be a waste of time and money. So but every case is different, you know. So, but that's basically what I'm here for.
Hey, Carlos, I have a question.
Yes.
So they don't have a dog, and they do have some other people in there, but how do you prove that those people are actually living there, rather than they can always say they're just visiting?
So that's a good question. I've had this situation come up where someone just stays in and they're kind of just visiting, but then they're not really visiting. How do you prove that, right? So when you do the inspection, you go in, you see other people there, right? You can kind of tell if they have luggages and things like that, right? But how do you prove it? So then you're not really required to prove it, right? What you do is you send a 7-day notice of non-compliance, and then you have to, that requires them to show you proof that they're not actually living there. You know, whether that proof they send you is valid or not, you don't feel comfortable with it, you want to ask for more, you're entitled to do that, you know. But if you do it for the bait, you can still, most people, what they'll do is they'll show, you know, they'll either send a video or send, you know, like, hey, this person's still living, you know, let me do another inspection, you know, and you kind of get to work around it. You know, you kind of do the best you can in order to get the most information that you possibly could. So if you see luggages and things like that, chances are do drive-bys. You know, I have my property managers do drive-bys on the properties all the time, especially when they're having issues with other people living in the property. Sometimes we get a renter with one person, and all of a sudden the whole family moves in, you know, and it doesn't become an issue as long as they're paying rent, right? As long as they're paying rent, what is it? You know, the landlord doesn't really care. But as long as they stop paying rent, and that's when the issue comes up. So you can do you can have your landlords drive by, your property managers drive by, see the activity during off hours and see what they do as well. So even though they send, that summoning notice requires them to send you proof, right? And you can require additional proof as long as, to the point that you feel satisfied. If they say, hey, I'm not going to send you anymore, then you can go ahead and I would, depending on what's in front of me, I'd be like, hey, we can go ahead and move forward with the eviction for terminating the lease.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So another thing that I like to do is, in these times, I've done what's called just general breach letters. Hey, you're not paying rent, you owe this money, this money's owed. You can technically file a lawsuit right now against any of these people for monies owed to them. It doesn't have to necessarily be an eviction. So you can go ahead and do that. But one, what are you really going to get out of it? Two, are you really going to collect any money from them? So sometimes usually people to not as a scare tactic, so to speak, because it's an actual lawsuit, but they actually, what you do is you use it because, hey, it's time to get out. So you can't do an eviction. I can get a summons and everything done for a breach of contract case right now, and say, hey, you owe me money for back pay. It's not an eviction case. It won't force them to move out. I won't get a sheriff order to move them, but they'll be in a lawsuit and they'll be for pending money. It's worked in some cases. Other tenants are a little more knowledgeable and they basically say, hey, I'm going to just, I don't care. I'm going to stay here, sue me for whatever you want and get a judgment and collect against me, whatever it is, It's trying times right now for landlords. I unfortunately, I represent more landlords than tenants. Obviously everybody's in a different situation. This is presenting itself. Like I said, I always try to work it out with the tenants. I always try to get them out as fast as possible without having to file a lawsuit or the eviction. But, sometimes they're just tenants that just don't even care to work, or they just, they block entrances, or they do things they're not supposed to, which helps the case of the landlord out. But, in the end, you still have to deal with it and you still have to move forward. So it's something that, I'm constantly and every day evolving. The good thing is now with this order, we're actually getting summonses issued out. So people are starting to get evicted, and things like that are happening.
Carlos, I'm sorry, I have another question for you.
Of course.
So I have a situation where I have a landlord and somebody has been in one of the apartments they've been there for years. However, they haven't been in the apartment for 5 months. They went to New Jersey. They got caught in the COVID thing where they couldn't travel. And she has reached out to them. They've never called her to have communication. So they were saying, we can't come. In the meantime, they're not paying rent. And so finally she tried calling them. The last time they wouldn't return the call. So she changed the lock, the top lock. And I said, well, what are you going to do with all the furniture that's in there? And she says, well, they owe me 10 grand. So in her mind, she thinks that she's entitled to taking all the stuff that's in there and selling it and getting her money. So I don't want to give her legal advice, but I'm like, okay.
I would tell her to call me as soon as, without getting into actual legal advice here. I'll give you a general sense. You're not allowed to change. You're not allowed to change locks without having an actual court order entered. Okay, can't lock someone out of their property. Now there are other avenues. Okay,
They haven't been paying rent.
Correct, but you have to go through. You have to go through the legal avenues to do so. Now, there are usually some language in most general leases that have regarding abandonment and termination of leases and things like that you can use for your advantage. I don't know what the lease is obviously in the situation. If that's the case, you can go ahead and do what's called a termination of lease due to abandonment, and then that is an actual. You go through the process and things like that. But Florida has very strong protection laws against tenants, as well as landlords. But, and just because of the way how this is, how the governor has written his orders, it's just a little, if it was an eviction process, generally in a timeline, everybody gets evicted out. It's a summary procedure. So you're pretty much out of there within 20 to 30 days, assuming you're just like a regular eviction. Now it's probably 60 days, something like that, depending how fast I get the clerks summonses and then if they fight it or not. So, but there are abandonment clauses in the leases that allow you to do certain things. So, and that's without me seeing it, I wouldn't be able to go and tell you, hey, this is what valuable. But there are notices and requirements that you can actually file. You can actually sign and file with it, and then that way you can use that as an abandonment issue, and then you can go ahead and do what's necessary, change locks, But you have to do you have to go through the proper procedures in order to do so,
Okay.
Because what if they come back? What if they come back tomorrow?
I'll have her give you a call.
Yeah, because what if they come back tomorrow unexpectedly? You know what I mean? All of a sudden they can't get into their thing. Now she's opened up herself to liability, civil suit, and things like that. Changing locks, turning off the air, turning off the lights, and stuff like that. You just can't do that. It's not it's against the law, and they'll open up themselves to a whole world of liability there.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for that.
Of course. These orders have not only affected evictions, but they've also affected a lot of foreclosures. As someone that has done foreclosure practice for the last 11 years or more, this is another avenue that's sales have been stalled, cases have been able to move forward, which is good for homeowners and stuff like that. I don't feel that banks are banks, landlords are landlords, tenants are tenants, defendants are defendants. So, if you're gonna if the it's slowed down the market for us, for me, and my business, and I'm sure your business in the foreclosure world. Foreclosure sales to me are lifeblood, are a good part of my business. We have different programs where we can help out people, or we buy properties in the foreclosure auction, or I have a lot of investors that buy properties in the foreclosure auction as well. So the order finally for August has actually evolved to allow actual foreclosure sales to actually start happening and start resetting them. But there are that market's starting to come back, and hope there will be I guess a little bubble sooner than later regarding that. So all of you, I can get into that maybe on another call or something like that, but that would be an interesting that's a whole different avenue and a whole different revenue stream for all of us here.
Carlos, quick question. Now that you mentioned the foreclosure, you guys doing short sales as well?
Yeah, we handle, so in-house, in office here, we pretty much we pretty much do everything regarding short sales, negotiations, representation in court and stuff like that. A lot of these short sales, there's gonna, like, in my opinion, because of this COVID and everybody that that wasn't paying and things like that, or the people that got stalled out for all the foreclosure sales that stopped. I mean, there's been 4 months without one foreclosure sale. So those are starting to come. Those are all also going to get reset, and there's going to be a whole market there for everybody to go in there and potentially help out some people, buy some properties, and make some good money, on that end for the short sales. That's going to be a whole new. It's going to be a nice. That'll never be 2008, 2009, but there's going to be a nice little good little chunk of money to be made there.
Very good. Going back to the whole eviction process. So if we have a case right now, by the way, I put your information in the chat for everybody to see it and copy it. But if we have an eviction or a tenants that they stop paying, for example, me, I'm working with this landlord, and one of their tenants, they just stopped paying the minute that it was since March. So they came to the office. They gave 2 months, to kind of like to cut up, but they're still behind a few months. But right now at this point, they're outside of they're in a month-to-month. Their lease is over. But then in that case, what do you suggest we should do? Should we go to the 15 days because they're a month-to-month, and that's it, cut it loose? Or what would be your suggestion on that?
So my first thing is always to try to work with the tenants. Get something, try to see if we can work it out. Obviously, it looks like you've already been that route. The 15-day notice, like I said, is useful because it terminates the lease. It doesn't matter when they come in and say, hey, they proved the COVID thing. They proved that I lost my job, I can't pay. At that point, you say, hey, this isn't it doesn't matter in this situation. It's very specific how you put the language in the order here. That doesn't affect the rental payments. So if there's a lease that's terminated, there's nothing there. He's considered almost even he's just a holdover tenant that's not even entitled to be there. you know, whether he pays rent or not, you know? So that I'd go the 15-day, you know, something like that. If they already tried working out with them, you know, the best way to do it right now, because of the order, in my opinion, would be to do the 15-day notice.
Okay, I think that's a good option as well. So we'll go with a 15-day notice. Now, if they
Yeah.
decide, hey, I'm still not gonna get out of the property, then what will be, besides contacting you, what will be the step to follow?
Well, I mean, listen, besides contacting me, you know what I mean? You want to prepare you want to have your notices in order. You know what I mean? That's the most important thing. You don't put your notices in order, you don't send the right notice, you send the 3 notices or the 15-day notice or vice versa. You know, you're going to start, you have to do those things before you actually file a suit. So how do we do those notices? Or do they have to be done by a lawyer like you? So sorry, Monica, I was reading Monica's question. So Monica, these notices are available. They're statutory notices. You know what I mean? They give you the language that has to be included in the notices pursuant to the statute, right? So yeah, I mean, experienced landlords have these in their back pockets already. I mean, most tenants that represent a lot of landlords will have these already as well. You know what I mean? So you can go ahead and pretty much get them like from the statutes and stuff like that. However, there are certain situations, there are certain languages, there are certain things that may be different from time to time. That's just your standard boilerplate. Hey, this is what you need to have in there. But you may want to add different things, or you may want to include different language for different situations or different scenarios. Maybe it's a condo unit, maybe it's a multifamily, maybe it's one unit instead of more. So there's a couple different scenarios that you may be able to have to do something different. So yeah, you should be able just to, 7-day notice for a statute, boom, you do this right there and then for you. You know what I mean? So you can definitely have those, and I can guide, once you guys want to get out here some emails and me and stuff like that, I can definitely, point those to you and give you guys direction where to put them, where to pull them. A lot of these, like I said, a lot of these can change from time to time based on a case-by-case basis. So you may want to either contact an attorney in case it seems complicated, or if it's just straight up, hey, I'm ending the lease and that's it. You should be fine with what, you should be fine with whatever the statute says.
Very good. Does anybody have any other question for Carlos?
I actually have a situation. I wish I would have heard of you earlier, because I feel like we've wasted so much time with another attorney that hasn't directed us this way. But the short version is, my tenants have been month to month. They stopped paying. My client wanted to sell the property. That's why they were month to month. We were just giving them time to move out. They completely stopped paying. She gave them the option to eat up their deposit. They had about 2 months worth of deposit, which I thought was a bad idea. I kind of advised her against it, but she wanted to be nice. And they haven't paid another payment since. So by what you're telling me, we could have way sooner started getting them out because they were month to month. Is that correct?
So at that point, give me a minute. At that point, I would have done a month-to-month lease. On the month-to-month, I would have terminated the lease.
Right.
And I would have, and then therefore you run out of. I mean, last month you couldn't. I mean, it wouldn't have. Last month it wouldn't have mattered, to be honest with you. Clerks weren't issued summonses and things like that. At least the way in my experience. But this month, now that they're actually issuing summons and the evictions are actually going forward, it'd be, the way that I would do it, right, would be to terminate the lease. So the payment doesn't become an issue. And it doesn't matter if they prove anything, then that way you can move forward. And that way then it doesn't matter what they do or show, and it doesn't, and yeah, unfortunately, everybody's had to kind of adapt and learn how to go through these, I've been doing evictions and real estate for so long that it's like, it's one of those things I just go through, you know what I mean? So I've watched this so closely with all of my other clients, that seen I've had to sit down with clients, figure out how to do this, what's the best way. I've gone to the clerk's office myself and try to do whatever I can. So, but if there's a situation that's a month to month and you want to get them out, I would do the 15-day termination letter, 15-day move out, and now they're holdover tenants. Now that's it. There's no payment issues or nothing. They're just staying there after extra time.
But chances are they've lost the money that they haven't paid the last couple months, right?
You could always go after the money for the tenants. That the governor's order doesn't relieve you from actually paying that money. You know, so you can still go, and whenever you do an eviction action, you could always include and go after them for the purposes of, you can for the money's owed. You can get a judgment not just for the actual possession, but you can get actual damages as well for the monies that they owe you. Realistically, what are you gonna, if they're not working, they're not paying, most people would just want to get in and out. It's easier to prove, it's faster in court, not necessarily. I file everything all at once, so I get it all at once, but most clients just want them out and move faster, so.
Oh, and I'll be able to sell her property, so that'll be a plus. I can have her call you, right?
Of course, please have her call me. And also remember, these guys in the inspection periods, on the inspection, these are also can be done for appraisals and things like that. So if you're selling a property and they're not paying, your landlord has a right to enter the property. It's his land. So you give a 12-hour notice that, hey, I'm going to conduct an appraisal at this time. They have to let you in there. I mean, if they're holding the door and holding it tight, don't push yourself in there. You know what I mean? Because you couldn't, but you can technically, go in, walk into the property, you give them proper notice, and you should be, and you're good to go. You're legally allowed to be in there. One more option I forgot to mention. I've had a couple hostile tenants that we needed to do an inspection. There were repairs need to be done or an appraisal need to be conducted, and they didn't allow us in. You can call the city that you're in for the police department, right? And they'll come with you to the door and they'll walk inside and they'll go to do the inspection with you. You tell them you fear for your life and that there is bad blood there and stuff like that. So there's been a couple of times that I've had to use that to our advantage. So the tenant was just a bad tenant, was basically threatening us, pointed a BB gun at my property manager. You know what I mean? So there was already some contention there. We thought that there was drug use on the property. We wanted to terminate the lease. We wanted to get him out of there. So we called the city of Miami Police Department. They came with us. They did the whole entire inspection. You know what I mean? Most people are going to respect the law, right? So you show up with a cop there, knock on the door, and hey, here you are with a cop. Now you've done an inspection. Now you've seen what's inside the property. You've conducted your appraisal. Now you're in the next phase of the moving of the property for sale. You still have to deal with them, but hey, you've at least accomplished an appraisal and an inspection at the same time. So now you've done two things that you need to do in order to move your sale forward, and you guys can get your commission.
Very good. Do I have anybody with a question for Carlos? I mean, this is all valuable information, Carlos. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
I have two scenarios.
Go for it.
Creative scenarios. So I have one listing where squatters have taken over the property and they have a fake lease. The owner doesn't live here and the owner, didn't even know about this. So we're almost about to sell the property and we find out these people are in there. We called the cops, nothing happened. Do these eviction moratoriums have anything to do with squatters, or are squatters not part of that?
Squatters are not part of that. Squatters do not fall in this. It's actually not an eviction process. It's called an unlawful detainer. Okay, there is no notice requirements for unlawful detainers. You don't have to post a 3-day, 5 days, 7 day, any type of notice before. You can just go ahead and file the unlawful detainer. I've had squatter cases where they've been in the property. They say that they were handymen there and that they were there for the purpose of fixing the property, so therefore they owe them money. But in the end, unlawful detainers, at least from what I read and stuff like that, are not affected by this. You can go ahead and move on those, and those should be no problem to push forward.
What time frame do you think that it would take to get these people out of there?
So I haven't filed one of those in COVID times. I'd have to check to see if I can file an electronic summons. If I can get an electronic summons, I'll basically pretty much like any other eviction, like 20 to 30 days. It's a summary procedure. They have to, it's a relatively quickly process compared to other things in the court system. But for unlawful detainer, I would say 30 days, give or take, depending on what the clerk does nowadays for those.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna have your info. I'm gonna call you after so we can talk about doing that for these people. I have another scenario with clients of mine that I leased out a unit for them, and the tenants were not making payments. They made some sort of arrangement with them. The tenants still owed them some money. The lease ended, and the tenants left the property, destroyed the property, and there's he said $3,000 of damage of the property. And he was just wondering, what can he do to come back for these people? Is it worth $3,000 to go back, and sue these people? I don't know if it's worth their time.
Are there people out of the property already?
They're out of the property, and they never did like a final walkthrough or anything like that. The people just disappeared, you know, tore up the property, and that's it.
So realistically, you know, is $3,000 worth it? I mean, $3,000, don't get me wrong, it's a lot of money, right? The landlord has put a lot of time and effort and stuff like that, right? Some of those cases, you know, I like to, you know, you should refer those to what I call, you know, specialized collection attorneys, right? That they take 20% of whatever the agreement is. You know, those people are probably the ones to give those cases to. As far as like a real estate attorney and stuff like that, they'll probably charge a little higher. You know what I mean? Like, for example, like if something go after someone for $3,000, you know, it's just one of those things that, you know, it's while it may be worth it to the client, to the grand scheme of the business and stuff like that, it'd be more expensive to go after them and potentially not getting anything from them if they're already not paying rent and stuff like that. You have to take all those factors. You should take all those factors into consideration.
Yeah, that's what I figured. That's what I told them, but you know, they just wanted.
If it was, listen, like, I guess like a rule of thumb for me, or not a rule of thumb, but like anything, like if they owe more than 10,000, hey, that's, I mean, even 7,500 around there. You know what I mean? Depends what the damage was. You know what I mean? If there were the caraos and they broke windows and put cement in your thing, or, you know, I've heard horror stories. If it's something like that, it's worth, you know, I'll go after someone on principle. You know what I mean? But for $1,500, you know, $2,000, you know, they're gonna spin their wheels trying to collect on it. Not saying if you filed an eviction, included in the eviction, you can always have a judgment against someone. That judgment is good for them for 20 years. So that's always, let's say they get back on their feet, they sell they bought a home and they're going to go sell it, right? Now you have a judgment against them. When they sell that property, they have to pay off that judgment, okay? And that adjustment is accrued interest, it's accrued everything. So if Hattie got an eviction done on them, included as part of the eviction, it's always a good thing to do. You always will have that. But if you didn't, and you want to go after them from scratch, for $3,000, you might spend more than what you need to do to get it.
Yeah, that's what I figured. All right, thank you. Really good information. Thank you.
Carlos, I have a question. It's Karen. Yeah, how are you? Quick question. I have a closing coming up. It's got tenants month to month. They already know, but we didn't give them the 15-day notice. We still have time to do that if we needed to. But that's my question. Do we? Because we gave the estoppels, sign, everything's done, ready to close pretty much. Should we give the 15-day notice regardless?
So like I said, I do my practice is investor driven, right? We do buy and sells, flips and flips, you know, rentals, you know, all that stuff, right? So I have a similar situation now. So I'll speak to that. So that way, you know, we have a thing that we're actually getting, that we're buying a property and there's people in there. So my client has asked me to, you know, he told them, hey, you need to get out. I said, that's fine. I'll get out in 30 days. But because there's so much money involved in the transaction, he's asked me to go ahead and just file. You know, he's not paying rent. He's not staying in there. You know, so we've actually go ahead and file the eviction. You know what I mean, and start moving forward. Why? Because if you don't protect yourself in that route, and I'm not saying it's gonna happen with your Karen. Please, I'm gonna put good positive vibes after this for your case, okay? But it's always, but you always want to be protected. You always want to do what you need to do in order to get this started, right? If I were you, I would do I mean, like, you should, it's good to, so I say if I were you, it's always good to send out the proper notices when you want to make sure that you need to do, in case they stay over, you know, because now you have to start the clock all over again in case they don't move out.
Well, the thing is that the buyer said that, you know, obviously just per contract, we just have to submit the estoppels, right? That's it. And we don't really have to give the 15-day notice, even though they already know verbally, because so, I mean, they're going to close on the property, and then the buyer has to take he's taking the property with the tenants, even though they're month to month.
Gotcha. Then you're good. And I mean, at that point, if the buyer's already assumed the responsibility for the time after the closing, then you don't. I mean, then you're.
So it doesn't help the buyer in any case anyway, right? That's giving the 15-day notice or not. It really doesn't help the buyer at all.
If the buyer's already assumed to take responsibility of the tenant, then, you know, if you're representing the seller, let them worry about it. You know what I mean? Okay. Don't do anything. Yeah, don't do anything that you're not required to do either. You know what I mean? If they already said, hey, don't worry, I'll take care of the buyer, I'll take care of the tenant, I'll deal with them after. Just make sure you have something in writing to that effect, so that way when it comes down to it, you know, they don't come back at you for something.
Yeah, it's on the contract. It doesn't say anything about anything, pretty much.
Oh,
He month to month. We reported the estoppels, and that's it. They have to take it as is. But I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have to give them the 15-day notice just out of courtesy to the tenant.
If the buyer's not requiring to do so, then, and he's agreed to take the responsibility of the tenant, then I will just leave it as is.
Okay, cool. Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Carlos, so you want to finish up with a little bit of information about the company, how they can reach you? I mean, I put this.
Yeah. Of course. So listen, guys, I'm always here for anything. You know, I value business more than money, because one, we can't have one without the other. So if you guys ever want to call me, just ask me a simple question, you know, a couple questions, you know, you guys have a case going on, I'm more than available. You know what I mean? I'm here to build relationships and make the business grow and help you guys, you know, make sure that you guys are treating your clients good and making sure you guys got everything you guys, you know, your end. I work really closely with one of your brokers, Jose Nino. We've done a lot of transactions together. You know what I mean? I've helped him out and, you know, a lot of things, whether it's his clients or his friend of a friend. So if you want to talk to someone that I've done work with, you know, you can always refer to him. As you know, like I said, this practice is investor driven. So I know a lot of you guys are on the streets and getting deals and stuff like that. Anything that you guys have, like investor wise, anything that, you know, it's a fix and flip property, something that has, like, you know, undervalue, something that's distressed, you know, please send it over to me. I more than likely have a buyer for it in cash. Okay. And we push these deals. We have hard money lenders inside, so we close pretty quickly as well. We have title agent on board, and we have private money lenders as well as conventional. You know what I mean? So we pretty much do everything from top to bottom, anything regarding real estate here. I also represent a lot of developers, so developers, business development. So, you know, anybody that's coming overseas, needs to start a business and needs to, you know, wants to get into real estate and needs some representation or anything like that, you know, we're here. We're a one-stop shop to help them out in every way possible for you guys.
Excellent, Carlos. Thank you so much for sharing that. I look forward to talking to you soon. I'm very interested in the whole short sale process. I have 2 properties that I think is a great opportunity, and I'll jump into that, but I'll call you later on today and we'll discuss. But on that note, I also want to see if we can put together maybe a training on foreclosures, short sales. I know that's part of your specialty, so perhaps we can do something soon.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, guys, yeah, I pretty much would love to do that. I think that's going to be a really big business for everybody here. There's going to be a huge market coming up soon. I think sometime in September and October, with all the new sales coming in. And I think that's something we could all take advantage of. And if I can show you guys how to get those properties, and then we buy them and flip them and sell them or whatever, and you guys can go ahead and get your work and your commission out of it, and we can work together. I would love the opportunity to work with each and every single one of you guys.
Awesome. Are you negotiating short sales?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We have staff here that does all the negotiation of the short sales. They're experienced. They really are rock stars on how they do it. We know how. Like I said, I used to work for the bad guys, so to speak. I used to represent the banks for a couple of years. So I know how they think. I know how they talk. I know how the processes are. I know everything in-house, how they work. So it's ridiculous. It's one of these things that how much red tape there is in the world. But it's brought me a lot of knowledge inside, so I'm able to cut through the tape, so to speak, and get the files moving a little faster than usual.
Nice.
Excellent. All right, Carlos, thank you. And once again, I'm putting his information in the chat for those of you if you want to get his info. So please make sure you get it. If not, feel free to reach me or Steve and I. We're gonna put the information in the office chat as well for everyone to have it. Thank you so much. It's very valuable information. I look forward to seeing you again and putting another training together, and especially on the whole, short sale and foreclosure process. Carlos, thank you.
Yeah, we'll set it up, guys. And it was a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for your time. Okay, please reach out to me if you guys need anything. Okay.
Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you,
guys, and thank you so much for joining us today. So that was Real Estate Friday for you. We're gonna try to bring in as much valuable information as we can, especially for the new real estate market that we're currently experiencing, and hopefully that's a lot of gold nuggets for you to take away and put it into use in your business nowadays. Now we have Steve. What do we have coming on next week? Are we finally doing the some of the trainings coming up for Tuesdays and Thursdays?
We are. I'm glad you asked. I didn't put them up yet, but I'm going to be putting them up this weekend. The schedule for the next few weeks, getting back to our Tuesdays and Thursday trainings for social media, lead generation, and digital marketing. So next week, we're going to be rebooting our Ultimate Agent 101 through 104 series. And I got a request for Instagram too. I think, is Will still on? Will's our Instagram rock star, and Adelis, our other Instagram rock star. Hi. And a lot of agents are very interested in that, you know, how they can get more followers and more business ultimately through social media, and especially through Instagram. So stay tuned for that. I put the link in the chat, www.brokernation.events. That's all going to be posted this weekend. I also got a request about recording. If anybody would like the recording for this, because it was really good information, really info-packed. Good job, you guys, putting on this today and getting the word out to everyone. Email me, steve@brokernation.net. I have the recordings and I can package them up and I send them to our favorite agents by request. So be a favorite agent and email me, steve@brokernation.net.
Excellent, Steve. So thank you for that. And I definitely look forward. Next week is going to be a great week because we have a lot of trainings coming up. And so make sure you go to www.brokernation.events, register for that event, invite somebody else, another agent, friend, somebody you know you've been working with and might benefit from this type of trainings. We definitely need them and we can definitely use them in today. So make sure you do invite somebody to that training or a team member, whoever, just invite them over. All right, guys, with that said, thank you so much. Have a wonderful Friday. Have a great weekend. Stay busy, stay safe, and stay strong. All right, guys.
Thank you, Dylan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Wave and have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.